Okay, figured I haven't done a video for a few days. Hasn't been too much going on. We got kind of the second wave of free agency going. All the big moves happened last week, and now we're kind of into that second tier. So I actually took notes this time, so I could not forget anything. So for um, for the Vikings here, let's see. Mostly it was just some small moves. Probably the biggest move they made, they signed a receiver, Tajay Sharp from the Titans, um, and they say he's going to be the number 2 receiver. We'll see. I mean, if they get someone really good in the draft, he'll probably be higher than that. He'll probably be higher than Sharp. I mean, but I really don't know much about him. You know, he's got okay numbers, which probably seem better when you consider the Titans have been very run heavy. So he could be a solid guy. He's not going to be Diggs, but I mean he'll be a solid guy. They signed what the hell is his name? Anthony Zettel, I think is how you say it. Defensive end. They got him from the 49ers. He's kind of, they do some of that rotation stuff with the D line. So, he hasn't done that flashy numbers or anything like that. But, you know, in general, I think it's not a bad idea to sign like backup players or backup type players from a team that's really deep at a certain area. Like, I mean, the 49ers have one of the best defenses, certainly one of the best pass rushes. So, hey, if we can get a guy who maybe would be a starter on most teams, or at least some teams, and we got him pretty cheap too, that'll be pretty good. I mean, I don't know if he'd be a starter or not, but hey, you gotta have backups too. Let's see, they also signed a guy from the XFL, a linebacker. I mean, he was in the XFL, so who knows? He'd probably just be a backup at best. But we'll see. Maybe they'll catch a diamond in the rough. And then they did some re-signings here. Amir Abdullah they re-signed. Could pretty much take it or leave it with him. I mean, he'll probably just be a return guy again. And maybe get an occasional catch or carry. The one I'm really glad they did is they re-signed Dakota Dozier. He was the one who filled in for Klein a couple times last year when he had concussions, and he was pretty good. I mean, I thought he was as good as Klein, really. So I don't know that they're planning to have him be a starter, or what really who they're planning on having as the guards. I would assume they're going to draft somebody, but I would give Dozier a shot. He was pretty good last year. And they also re-signed Brett Jones, who's kind of hung around here for a couple of years. Hasn't played a whole lot, but he's a depth guy. I don't know if that means they're maybe gonna still cut Elfline. That's been discussed, but I feel like they probably would have done that already if they needed to. Let's see. Let's consult the notes here. Okay, that's it for who they've signed. As far as some of the more departures, I believe this happened after my last video. Everson Griffin actually announced that he is not going to be returning. He hasn't signed anywhere yet, but obviously the contract he's looking for or hoping for, the Vikings just can't afford it, and the Vikings really don't have much cap space at the moment. They're still working on whatever they're going to do with Harris, so there's kind of like a $10 million pending there, which could be freed up, but we'll see what happens there. I would think odds are Harris will not be back, but Griffin probably is in line for or hoping for a pretty good deal. And let's see. Can't read my writing. Xavier Rhodes signed with the Colts. It was like a $5 million 1-year deal. I guess the Vikings did have some interest in getting him back, but they probably weren't even willing to go that high. They weren't even willing to give him $5 million. So we'll see what happens with him. You know, I don't know if there's really any history of elite corners who really fell off but then had a resurgence. It's probably happened, but it's also probably pretty rare. I think this could be the end for Rhodes, or he could just kind of hang around for a couple years as a veteran. And Laquan went to the Atlanta Falcons, also on a one-year deal. I'm kind of surprised he got a deal because when he was cut at the end of camp last year, he didn't get anything for weeks. I mean, the Vikings brought him back. That was the first inkling, I think, that anyone was interested in him at that point. So, I was kind of surprised. It's kind of the same thing with when Sendejo signed, which I think was on the last video. These guys who just were like on the street essentially as free agents, and Vikings were able to just pick them up in the middle of the season. So that probably now is officially the end of the Treadwell era. He was a bust, but that was softened considerably considering they drafted him the year that Thielen broke out and Diggs, really broke out. Like, that was the draft where you went in and you're like, receiver is a need. But it turned out it wasn't a need because you had two star receivers right there. They just hadn't really blossomed yet. So, but it was a bust. I mean, I'm a Spielman guy, but that was a bust. That's probably the worst for where the pick was made and what you got out of it. That has to be the worst pick of the Spielman era. So yeah, that's it for now. Now that they made some of these little small signings, I think it's mostly just kind of filling out the roster pre-draft. Some of these guys, who knows if they'll even actually make the team. I mean, if there's a season at all. But come together pretty good. I think they've had a pretty good run here in free agency. I know they didn't sign a big time offensive lineman, so that's going to piss people off. But I think that's going to be, so one thing with some of these moves is it kind of helps you. You don't have to necessarily draft guys, like not necessarily in the earlier rounds, but in the later rounds, mid to late rounds, to fill in roster spots because you've already got those roster spots filled in, presumably with guys like Dozier and Jones and Abdullah. So, yeah, I think in the draft then they'll probably, cornerback, offensive line, and maybe some defensive line stuff, and receiver too. So I think those are probably like your 4 focus points, and maybe we'll see what happens with Cook. Still really no news on that, as far as whether or not they're gonna extend him. I'm still hoping that they don't, at least not. If they do, I hope it's just a very, very team-friendly deal, because you just can't do it these days. You can't give him a big contract. And I don't know where they would find the money, frankly, for that either. So that's it for now. Wish there was other sports going on, but we're still in the suck. So maybe things will get better on that end. But at least we got the Vikings and free agency giving us something to talk about.